So we were discussing different authors, how the characters were presented, and I love the fact that some of them want to come back in September when the book club starts again and join again. So I have to find brand new books now. So they really enjoyed being part of a group that share the same interests and hear other people's points of view. So what I tried to do was I led the questioning, but I tried to make it less of a lesson and more, we just sat around a table just generally discussing the book. So I brought in biscuits, and there wasn't, like lesson objectives and a plenary. It was just meant to be a lot more relaxed. And what I hope to do next time I run it is to nominate students to lead the questions more themselves. So it's not just me talking at them, which is apparently what I'm quite good at. One of the things that I thought was really lovely was that outside of the book club, outside of the meetings, they were just still discussing the books, what they were reading, what they got for Christmas. And they were sending in pictures and just talking amongst themselves, which I thought was really sweet. And I didn't ask them to do that. This was just off their own back. They also used the chat if we moved rooms. So we didn't have a base room. We just dipped into a classroom. So if we ever needed to move classrooms, they all told each other. So I thought that was lovely because there was a sense that we were all friends. We were this little community. And I think for quite a few of them, that they started off quite shy, but then being around these people and talking about books as opposed to work, I think it brought them out of their shell a little bit more. So I've realized I've talked at a million miles an hour, but basically, I think that it improved their confidence. It created those lovely relationships, and I would definitely advise you to run your own. It has been really worthwhile. I've got the students to write some book reviews, which are going to go up on display, and having things up on display that are, in the students' own words. We're going to have them up in the learning curve as well. I think it's a beautiful thing.
Thank you so much, Amy, and for persevering and sorting your sound out. That idea of confidence and self-belief keeps learner self-belief keeps coming up, doesn't it?
Let me just repeat. This one we will definitely.
I don't know who we can hear in the background. I can't see, but if you've got your mic on and can turn it off, that would be really helpful. Thank you. Amy, is Millie there to talk to us and share?
Yes.
So you might have particular questions for Millie, who, as Amy has said, is one of the students.
Sorry.
Okay. Thanks for your patience, Millie.
Yeah, bet. What do I have to?
Millie, perhaps if you just tell us a little bit about your participation in the book club, and perhaps any changes in your own reading habits that it's had an impact on.
It's more about me making more friends, to be fair, because I stick with my own kind usually, and I do find obviously new friends in my course and all that, but it was more of the fact that I wanted to expand my relationships, I guess, with other people. So that was more why I joined it, but it's also because I also enjoy doing reading in my free time more than probably hanging out with my family more than doing that. It also helped me to escape from my natural habitat, from my family and all that, because during lockdown I probably did more reading, to be fair, than actual work, to be fair, which kind of helped me in a way, because it kind of helped my knowledge more, and also helped me create more of my because I also do stories in my free time as well, so create my own stories. That kind of helped me as well.
Great, thank you. There are some questions in chat. I think they may be residual ones from the last presentation, but they still apply here about whether the college provided the books. Did the students have to purchase them themselves? How did that element work?
The college purchased them themselves. We just suggested them, and then Amy was able to sort it all out and give us, and obviously then we just had to collect the books at the from her, and then we take them back, and then we just join back again in like a month or so.
Okay, brilliant, thank you. Anyone else got any questions?
Millie, I wanted to say, oh, sorry, I was going to say, what was your favourite book that you read?
I was most intrigued with The Woman in Black, because when I got home, I usually like, because I'm reading a book, I usually read a book before I come into book club anyway, because I finished the book anyway. So I've started the other book I bought myself. But I opened The Woman in Black, and I read the first page, and I was literally intrigued by the next page, and I kept on reading, and I got to about chapter 5 by the end of the evening. So that was probably one of the best books I read, that was, yeah, definitely that was one of the interesting ones. I would love to, I always like to read books, but it's more but yeah, that one was definitely the most intriguing.
Right, Louise, you were going to ask a question as well.
Thank you, and really great to hear a student's voice on here, so thank you so much for joining us.
Okay.
I'm quite intrigued to hear your point of view about how important it was to have a member of staff guiding you through the process. You know, for example, if it was just a book club that you went along to and there happened to just be other students there, would you have carried on, or was it quite important that there was a member of staff, Amy particularly, there to support you and guide you through that?
Well, I knew Amy because she was my English teacher anyway. So, and to be fair, it's more fun with Amy there. But we obviously get along. We all do get along with each other, and I think even if Amy wasn't there, I would still have to carry it on without her, but it won't be the same.
Brilliant, thank you.
Thank you. Shireen, you had a question.
Yeah, mine was quite similar to Louise's. I was just going to ask Amy if she was kind of more up for book club because it was being led by your English teacher rather than, say, just someone from the library that you didn't know running it, which I think you've kind of answered, haven't you?
Well, to be fair, I think if someone else had asked me to do book club, it would depend on what I'm like at the time, because I did get off, like in high school, I did get off to do a book club. And I said no because at that time I was really busy with my exams and everything, and I didn't have enough time to do all everything I wanted to do, because I had to quit a few of my clubs that I did in year 9 to fit in my revision for my exams and my revision for GCSEs in year 10. So I didn't have enough time to do all the things that I wanted to do. So me sacrificing my time into my exams, so I didn't get to do a lot of things I wanted to do at that time. But then obviously college happened. I had probably about 3 days of days off, depending on what rota I was on. So I thought, why not? But to be fair, if someone did ask me other than Amy in a library or something, I'd probably say yes, to be fair, because obviously I have more free time and I can do what I want to do now. So I would definitely say yes.
Oh, that's interesting. Thanks, Amy.
Yes, thank you. Right, we're going to need to move on, but thank you very much, Amy, and thank you, Millie, for coming along and speaking to us as well. So lots of themes that are re-emerging about student self-belief. I'm going to do a shameless plug now, okay? My shameless plug is this. I'm just about to start working with the reading agency on reviewing and reinvigorating their adults reading offer, which, as lots of you know, is all about reading for pleasure. And there are books involved that you can get your hands on. And, you know, lots of you have been asking in chat, you know, have you had to fund these yourselves, for instance? So I am shamelessly, most of you have this already, but I'm shamelessly going to put my email address into chat now. Please do come back to me if these are areas that you want to explore a little bit more, because as I start working with the reading agency from the beginning of August. These are all things that I would love to promote in your organisations and others.
Yeah, as Kirsty said, I worked jointly with my colleague Sophie Jenkins, who can't be here today. We're from the College of West Anglia, and we focused on developing reading in our 16 to 18-year-olds. What we wanted to achieve was just breaking down some of the barriers from school around English and reading in particular, improve learning and engagement, teach comprehension rather than just testing it. And we wanted to really build vocational relationships to support reading. And we had a focus on our technology department for this project. Sophie and I sort of came together and chose this as our topic for a couple of reasons. I'd done a blog for my teacher training on sort of improving reading and a sort of a whole college approach to reading. So I had a few ideas, and Sophie had been looking into Vivian Smith's framework as for some study that she was doing. And we kind of brought the ideas together. So one of the first things that we did, and this is what we started on sort of at the end of last year and over the summer, was that we produced this anthology of texts that we used for our English GCSE lessons this year. We based this on student voice from the end of the year on topics that students were interested in. And the idea is that they would revisit text. So rather than having a different text every lesson, they would just use the anthology and we could revisit text. So it meant that they could get a deeper understanding of the text, they could make new links, ask deeper questions of the text as they got to know them more. This was the idea that they had actually been part of the process for this, and we used the student voice to inform the themes that we had in the text. You can see here the sort of details of the student voice and what particular themes they were interested in, which was the base for it. As well as this, we actually had quite a lot of ideas that we tried to implement. We tried out some echo reading by David Didau, which I'll explain in a bit more detail later. And we looked at mixing up our 5-a-day starter to kind of include reading at the start of lessons as well. And one of the most important things we did was to try and build those vocational links to support and encourage reading with our technology department. So here are some of our lovely lecturers from technology. So one of the things we did, and it took a lot of biscuits to bribe them, was to get them to read some of the texts from the anthology. And we filmed them doing this, and they were put onto our Moodle platform so the students could actually see their own tutors reading. And what was really brilliant about it was that these tutors were nervous to do it, you know, but we wanted to show that reading isn't just something you do when you come to English, that everybody reads and it's normal to read. So when we were filming them, even though they stumbled over words or messed bits up, it wasn't perfect. That was whole part of it, because we wanted students to show that actually it's normal to not know every word in a text when you read it, not to read it perfectly every time, and to kind of normalise that and not to think that, you know, they were doing something wrong by not knowing words, for example. We also went down to the workshops to see kind of what was about for students to read. So on the left, you can see some notice boards that were quite empty. So again, based on student voice, we kind of ordered some magazines on cars, electric cars, football, gaming, all things they said they were interested in. And we kind of went across and put some articles and things up just to encourage reading when they're standing about in the corridors, things they might just do a bit more. I'm also going to briefly mention L'Explore reading software. This was sort of AI software that we brought into the department, but unfortunately we haven't had a lot of time to fully explore this other than do our training on it and kind of test it out. We're hoping to track some of the learners from the project, but unfortunately due to circumstances weren't able to this year. But briefly how it works is you'll see the small piece of text on the left here. So a student will read that sort of out loud in their head, and there's a tracking device on the computer that tracks their eye movements. So where you see the sort of larger circles, these are words that they might be struggling with. Where the lines are going backwards and forwards, it's kind of how they're reading the text and they're going forward and perhaps going back to a word, for example. And it's brilliant because it will give you a reading age. It will show you words that they're struggling with. It will highlight interventions that you can then follow up. Unfortunately, we couldn't do a lot with this, but we hope to look at that more in the future. So looking at the impact it had on our learners. So when we started, we hoped really that as a bare minimum, we could improve the relationship between learners and texts. We hoped to see an improvement in their achievement, but also an improvement in their enjoyment and engagement in lessons as well. So this is one of Sophie's classes. So we wanted to encourage reading out loud. So these were some particularly students that wanted to be heard. So Sophie took advantage of that and got them kind of up the front. They're reading The Hate You Give here, taking turns to do that. And from this, we then started to trial echo reading, which is something that David Didau has done. And what it is that the tutor will read perhaps a paragraph or a sentence, however you want to do it, and then the student will then read the same part of the text. So we both approached it slightly differently. On the left, this was Sophie's approach. So she actually pre-typed out which part she wanted the learners to read after her. I just kind of stood in front of a learner as I went around the class. And you can see some of the feedback that they actually gave. These were my students. Although they didn't want to read out loud, this particular student, they said it helped them understand the text better. They said rereading it helped to understand the text better. And this student here said that he believes the more you read something, the more you remember and understand, and that the echo reading actually helped him to stop from going on his phone and actually concentrate more, because, you know, they were being made to follow along and then they were going to repeat it. So it kind of improved engagement that way. This is we use student voice quite a lot during our project, and this is just from the first terms. When they started in September, we asked them about their experiences of English at school. So you can see what they're saying: it was boring, hated it, work wasn't explained. And then just from the first term in our December student voice, from 220 learners that took part, we had quite high statistics about getting on with the teacher, work being explained, they were enjoying lessons, they were finding them interesting. So that was quite encouraging. And then at the end of the project, our kind of overall feedback really was quite positive about lessons as a whole. Again, getting on with the teacher, work getting explained, enjoyed going to English, found the lessons interesting. So it still echoed through. And with, you know, the vast majority of students actually saying that they'd made progress in their lessons this year, which was brilliant, and some comments that they have gone on to make there. So Claire, you were talking about the reading agency. We actually made links with our LRC, and they had a load of these quick reads, which I think are reading agency. And we use these, at the start of lessons. Instead of our sort of 5-a-day starter that we had, where they might just, you know, do some spag work or something like that, we thought, well, we'll use that 10 minutes or so to encourage them to read. So they could choose one of these quick reads. And we found, although not all of them engaged with it, some did, but it did open up discussions generally about reading, what they wanted to read. We didn't like this book, but I'd rather have something on cars or whatever it might have been. Some learners actually asked to bring in their own books. Yeah, that was some of my learners. And I said, yeah, we could do that next time we try this, thinking we'll try this again in a couple of weeks' time. And they turned up, you know, the next lesson with their books they'd brought in from home. And I was flabbergasted that they'd done that. So that was brilliant. And when we saw that not all of the students would be engaging with reading, we actually came up with the idea of offering like a research task alternative. So they perhaps asked to look up some facts about whatever topic we were going to do that lesson. So they're still reading, they're still engaging and finding out information. And sorry, skip too quick. We had some really good feedback about this as well. And some learners saying it helped them relax at the start of lesson, just have that sort of downtime, which was really good. We also, through the LRC, asked them to get some of the books in from the anthology that we had extracts from. So these were all available across all of our campuses. And we, at the end of the year, we actually had 29 loans out. So it showed that we had actually encouraged some learners to read outside the classroom, to go to the LRC and actually take these books out of their own back. And we found that The Book Thief was the most popular book, which was in obviously our war and conflict theme that most of the students enjoyed through the student voice. I've just got a couple of learner journeys to quickly share with you. So the first one is one of Sophie's students, a level 1 plumbing student, first year at college, really despondent, that typical fixed mindset of not being able to pass, struggled with their confidence and their reading ability, and started the student voice survey at the start of the year saying that speaking was their main barrier to achieving, but they now actually frequently read out in class. Actually had higher attendance to English than their vocational area, had an 8-mark increase in the reading questions between January and March. They were paper 2 assessments, that's like for like comparison. Completely changed their behaviour and contributions in lesson, grown in confidence, which I think is a common theme throughout today really. Comes to the front, adds to the board. Language analysis marks have doubled, evaluation marks doubled too. The second student was one of mine. English wasn't first language, bricklaying student, very down on their ability again, really distracted at the start of the year. But as the year went on, the dynamics of the class changed. Actually, some of those students they became more engaged and confident. And the biggest breakthrough of this particular student was actually the echo reading. This was the student who said that actually it helped them to not be on their phone and to concentrate. And revisiting the text really helped. And they participated more with the group to discuss the text. And then since that point, really, it's really come out of their shell, always volunteered to read aloud and actually encouraged others in the class. And I could have cried when this happened. There was 2 female students that refused all year to read out, and through him being more confident, he was encouraging, saying, come on, just read a sentence, just read a little bit, you'll be fine. And they did it. They began reading short paragraphs, and that's probably my proudest moment from the whole thing, to be honest. He gave positive feedback about reading at the start of lessons, saying it gave time to relax and read, took on the role of presenting, so being the teacher, encouraging others to expand their opinions. We had a bit of a running joke that he'd always say, but why, to get everyone to say a bit more. And his assessments again have shown clear progress, actually an increase of 10 marks on the reading section between January and March. So really good learner journeys there. And just some reflections we took from it were that some of the themes from the anthology we thought we'd need to be covered later in the year to allow learners to bond and mature. So we started with some of the equality and diversity texts, which we thought perhaps would be better later on in the year. We would start early with reading aloud. We thought that was quite important to get the learners involved and not to just rely on the teacher reading, which is quite common. Just be honest with our learners and let them be our guinea pigs. Just tell them what we're trialing out and use them to get feedback. And that time moves really quickly. So try not to take your foot off the gas if you're trying something out. And that was it. If there's any questions.
Brilliant, Shireen. Thank you so much. Yeah, we've just got a minute or so for questions. If anyone's got one to ask, or pop them in chat.
Slide 21. I'm not sure what slide that was. Oh, okay. I can see my phone. Yeah. There we are.
There we go. Thank you.
I'll screenshot the books. Okay, cool. That was a poster that I actually made that myself, put up everywhere. It's like, go take some books out.
It's brilliant. I think that's in the appendices of your report as well, isn't it, Shireen?
Yeah.
We had another OTLA research project about 3 years ago in English where they did some other things around reading for the same reasons that you did, but they did them in a different way. But they found that on the first day when they put books out for people to borrow, the whole stock went in one day.
Yeah.
And they feared at the time that it would just be people taking them but actually not looking at them. But as the project went on, it bore out that actually, yes, they had been looking at it.
Yeah.
Incredibly proud moments, and I'm not I'm not surprised, Shireen, that it almost brings a tear to your eye to see the impact that it's had on certain learners, because, you know, all English teachers feel that way about their learners when they see that kind of result.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Louise has asked about the improvement on writing skills. Was there a knock-on effect there? Have you begun to see that?
There were things to, obviously we were focusing on reading, but there were things like when we were reading at the start of lessons, I would have some students say, well, they really enjoyed the start of this book, and then we would talk about how they could do something similar in their own writing. So I did find it opened up those conversations and ideas and thoughts about writing as well. But yeah, something that you could definitely obviously develop.
That's great, thank you. Andy's put a comment in there about how you used vocational tutors and that they were central to helping the students.
Yeah, that was brilliant. We're really pleased with how many came on board, and
yeah, it's wonderful.
We kind of thought we'd focus on one area, but it's definitely something that could, you know, be rolled out to other areas of the college.
And quite important, that point that you made, I think, about when you recorded them, that it wasn't perfect.
Yeah,
because the reality is that reading is not a linear activity, and therefore it is never perfect, because you, as that the software shows about your eyes retracing, you retrace your steps, sometimes with your eyes, sometimes with your thoughts. Yeah, sometimes exactly. I've even been known to get a piece of paper and write down little tree diagrams and things, and I'm getting particularly confused about the amount of characters in a novel, and I can't remember who's who to whom. I start making my own family tree. You know, we all have those reflections about reading if we're active, but lots of our learners think that that's a sign of not being good at reading, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I think it's important that they see that, and from us as teachers as well. You know, I'm always saying, no, I don't know every word in the English language. You know, we need to look things up, and you know, we're all learning all the time, and I think that's really important. Every day's a school day.
Thank you. Cass has made a really good point there about the diversity of authors and topics, and that cultural cache that we talked about a little bit.
Yeah, it was all about building their knowledge as well, and their experiences and what they know about the world around us as well. That was also really important.